Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tomorrow. I am joined by Jared Head, Ryan Caton, and the one and only Photon Empress, Jamie Higginbotham. It is so awesome to be here with everybody, and we've had a crazy and exciting week, and there's going to be even more craziness and excitement in the upcoming week. So I figured today that we would sit around and chat a little bit about the New Glenn rocket, which has been delayed a couple of times already, and may or may not be delayed a few more times before we finally see that thing launch. Talk a little bit about Starship and the progress that they've made for their upcoming 7th flight of Starship, and also maybe have a little bit of a discussion about the Mars sample return decision, non-decision. I'm still not sure what to call it. That NASA talked about
stupid.
This week.
It's all dumb. Yeah. There's a teaser. I think the whole thing is stupid.
Uh-oh.
You heard it here first. Oh man, we haven't had you on in a while, Jamie. How you doing?
Doing great. Actually, Joshua says I have a new background. That is not true. I have an old background. You can always tell what state I'm in based on my background. Because I don't green screen anything is proven by my ability to pick things up. And so I'm actually currently in California. I am onboarding someone new to my team. And so I needed to be in California, which means I will be in California for the Starship flight. Makes me a little bit sad that I'm going to miss it in person. But, is what it is.
Well, at least you'll be in California for the Transporter 12 mission.
I mean, that's kind of cool. Hang on. You guys keep going.
Ruh-roh. And actually, we have someone else to bring on. We have Zach Albert here, who doing a little bit of troubleshooting here. We haven't seen Zach in quite some time, so that is awesome that we are able to have Zach here.
Good to be back.
Good to see you. How are you, Zach? We know you've had quite a few health problems. How you doing? Are you okay?
Good. I've been home, I lost count of days. 4 weeks, I think. So good to be home. Good to be home for Christmas and New Year's and all that. And just taking it a day at a time. But the biggest stuff is out of the way, and now it's the longer duration recovery. So day at a time, learning to be normal again.
Oh man!
No such thing in aerospace. No such thing as normal in aerospace.
Well, definitely not.
I went to a restaurant one day, and that was like a big activity. And then yesterday, I went and jumped on a boat to see New Glenn. So, just leaps and bounds.
I will say I don't believe aerospace is calling it New Glenn anymore. Scott Manley has coined the term Blue Origin New Glenn, which is to be shortened to Bong.
The bong is lit.
I'm using that tonight on air.
At Miko, we're going to say the bong has cleared.
Yeah, gotta be careful with your bong around the water. So.
Oh man, it is going to be exciting. So we've had a couple of delays, which is actually a good thing because we want to make sure that Blue Origin makes sure that everything goes according to plan and that they're at least able to launch the rocket. I mean, I do kind of want to go around and get everyone's opinions. As of right now, I'm still I think that it'll definitely launch. I think that it'll definitely launch. I think that they have a maybe 60 to 70% chance of just Miko and Seiko. And
what green crack are you smoking?
Well, don't forget, it's the bong.
Okay, no, keep going. I want to hear your crazy thoughts here.
I don't get me wrong. I would love to see everything successful, but I think that they only have I have no idea where their launch, their landing of the first stage is at. I'm being generous and saying they might have a 50% chance of that, but I don't know. I really don't know. And there could be so many other unforeseen problems, but don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to be a hater. I really want to see them succeed. It's just...
Oh man, if you think you're a hater, just wait till you get to me. Do me last. Do me last.
Okay, Jared, what do you think? What chances do you give them for the different stages of flight?
Well, I give it 100% chance of going up and a 100% chance of coming down.
What is wrong with you people?
But no, Listen, would you just listen to me? So, so in all seriousness, though, I think maybe tonight is like 50-50 in terms of actually leaving the pad. Let's face it, ground support equipment is unbelievably complicated. I know, Jamie, you've talked in length about it before, about how, like, literally, like, if you think a rocket is expensive and complicated, wait till you meet the ground support equipment and everything that goes with it. Like, it's just as complicated. It can sometimes even be more expensive than that as well. So yes, I think it's 50-50. I think if it clears the pad, if it clears the tower, uh, first of all, if it does clear the tower, I think it will clear the tower before parts of its launch pad do. That's something we have to throw in now about the first flight of every rocket at this point. And then I think it will be. I give it maybe once it's up and flying. I think because they have data from Vulcan flights and things like that now of the BE-4 in action. I think there's a 75% chance they'll make it to MECO, and then a 50% chance after that it'll make it to orbit. And then I'll give it a 10% chance at the booster landing with it. I'm actually really interested in seeing how they do the booster landing because I want to see if they do it. Because Scott Manley in one of his videos mentioned that there's the possibility of BE-4s being potent enough that they can actually throttle the engines to hover the booster before it lands, just like they do with the New Shepard stick. And I just want to see like a huge booster hovering before it lands. There. I don't want the suicide burn that Falcon 9 does, which is also like amazing and impressive, having seen it in person several times. Like, it's unbelievable.
Hover slam. It's called the hover slam.
The hover slam. Whatever.
It doesn't hover nor slam.
It does actually. It does hover for a split second. It nulls out at the very last second, but it does. If you look, it does kind of go like this and then dump down. But it hovers and slams. That's why there's a crush core.
Yeah, it's like a 0.1 burn, not a 0.0 burn, but a 0.1 kind of burn. And it's really cool to watch it up close if you guys ever get a chance to see some great footage of that. But yeah, that's my thing. 75%, 50-50 it actually launches. If it doesn't launch, 75% it makes it to MECO, 50% it makes it to orbit, 10% the booster actually lands. We'll see. Somebody should write this down. Oh
yeah, we got to get a bet track going.
We have this proof. Real quick, I just wanted to give a big thank you to Joseph Sixvari. Excuse me if I mispronounced your name, for becoming a member. Thank you very much. It's people like you that help keep us going. And I did like what Arabelle had to say. I think 25% chance of launch tonight, 55% successful orbit when they do launch, and 15% chance of successful landing. Very interesting. Ryan, what do you think? What chances do you give New Glenn? Or excuse me, Bong.
I do want to appreciate the chat room using Bong as the acronym.
I no longer think that New Glenn will launch within 2 weeks of Starship Flight 5. I think that ship has very much sailed at this point.
What? Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I appreciate you being mature enough to admit that. That's okay. That's okay.
Ryan, I forgot about that. You didn't even need to bring that back up. You threw yourself under the bus.
That was a teeny weeny oversight of my part last August.
That's how you know that Ryan is trustworthy.
It might be flight 5 of block 2. We don't know. It's
Ryan,
still on the ground.
Right. Just, in my opinion, you just fell up the escalator by doing that. So, it's great.
Okay, but what do you think?
I'm basing this on what Blue Origin has said, and Blue Origin has said multiple times, very publicly, mission success for NG-1 is achieving orbit, right? Why would they say that if they don't think they can actually do it? That's what's in my head. SpaceX has very publicly said on the first flight of Starship, anything beyond clearing the pad is a bonus, and it turns out the pad cleared the rocket first, as we all found out. But Blue say that mission success for them is achieving orbit. Why would they say that if they don't think they could do it? So I think Blue think they can do it, which means I'm going to give them an 85% chance of achieving orbit with the second stage. And I think a very similar percentage chance that the booster gets close to Jacqueline. Now, whether it lands on Jacqueline is another question. I give it 50% landing on Jacqueline and 50% Falcon Heavy demo, where the center core plummets into the ocean at 1,000,000 miles an hour just beyond the drone ship. Maybe we'll see that with New Glenn, but I'm hoping it lands. So I'm fairly confident in New Glenn. Or we'll have a pretty epic thumbnail for the end of the week. But I'm confident.
But you also think it's launching tonight / tomorrow morning, depending upon your time zone, right?
It would be great if it did. The various static fire attempts showed that Blue isn't afraid to give it a go, then wrap up for the night, then go back to T-4 minutes, then top up the fuel, and then go back and then scrub, and then recycle, and then scrub, and do that a few times. So, Blue, same with the New Shepard. Blue is very dynamic in the way that it utilizes holds in the count, shall we say, and their ability to recycle and give it another go and things like that. So I don't think it will go on the first attempt, but I'm not sure how many attempts they'll have for tonight. I think... I don't want to say it's not going to go, but I think there's a chance it goes tonight if they get into fueling. But I also think there's a very good chance it doesn't go on their first published T0, shall I say.
You had a good analysis on X talking about the C states as well, right? Because they had pushed a couple times, and it sounds like C states tonight are actually much more favorable.
Yeah, let me scroll up to find my...
That does tell me a lot that they are willing to put everything on hold because of what the conditions are at sea for the Jacqueline landing vehicle. It's like, okay, then they think they are confident that they are going to be able to do this. We'll see. Yeah, Jonathan Tucker, big question is, will it fly this week? We'll see. But yeah,
so
go ahead.
The forecast about 24 hours ago, but this was before Blue Origin pushed 24 hours to tonight. So the forecast for 24 hours ago was 20-knot winds, gusting 31 knots, wave height of 4 meters, which is 13.1 feet. However, tonight was forecasted to be 9 knots, gusting 15, waves 2 meters, 6.5 feet, which is so much better than the night before. So it's clearly Blues their sea state condition limit is clearly somewhere between 4 and 2 meters. We don't know where it is within that, but Blue very clearly is favouring the calmer seas because they want a good chance of getting this booster on the ground, on the barge.
Interesting. NRJ thinks that Bong will burn up in bits and pieces, maybe in atmosphere while coming back. I sure hope not, but that would suck.
There was a new member as well.
Yes. Thank you very much to PJ Van Vliet. I hope I pronounced your name successfully. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate the support. There was another comment that I did want to show too of Ross. Blue Origin are a right first-time launch provider. I predict 90% plus probability that New Glenn reaches orbit. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Ross, you're crazy.
Well, before we get to Jamie, Zach, what do you think? What percentages? How likely do you think that it's going to be successful in its different stages?
Well, I agree with you partially. It will launch asterisk eventually. We'll see how many times they have to try to do it. I think looking at them getting through their wet dress rehearsal and their static fire, how many times did we have to see NSF go live for 9 hours a day, waiting, trying to guess what they're doing before we actually saw flame? So I think we're probably going to see the same thing. Like Jamie has said numerous times, GSE isn't easy. And I think that's where if they're going to look at SLS, and how long it took them to get that off the ground. This thing's, similar size to it. I don't think people realize actually how big this rocket is. We're so used to Falcon 9. This is a very large vehicle. And 7 new engines, the size of it, like there's a lot of new things that, yes, they have history with New Shepard. They have launched before, but they can fit, what is it? They can fit the entire New Shepard launch vehicle in the fairing, or
Something
like
like
30
that.
capsules in the fairing. So
Something like that.
This is a huge rocket. I don't think people comprehend how big of a jump it is from New Shepard to New Glenn. It's like going from Falcon 1 to Falcon Heavy.
Real quick, Ryan, do I have your permission to use your media?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Here, I'm going to pull this up so that you can
yeah.
see
This is
a really good.
We get to cheat. We see what's in preview. Yeah.
Yeah. So, boom. Here is this graphic that Ryan created to kind of give us a sense of scale on how big this thing actually is. So,
I wish New Shepard and Falcon 1 were in there, right? Because it is hard to comprehend how much of a, like, they've gone from literally like a Falcon 1 sized rocket, smaller than anything that's on here, to something that's the size of the Space Launch System and nearly the size of the N1 and the Saturn V. Right? That's a huge jump. That's a massively huge. Now they've had a lot of time to do it. but like this is a big boy, right? Like this is a real rocket.
bigger than SLS, but just a little bit smaller than the Saturn V. So that's
New
pretty
Shepard
impressive.
is in there. It's behind the Ariane 6 SRB at the bottom.
Erie says it's not the size that counts, it's the payload size. I mean, it's all of the above, right? Like the bigger the rocket, the more payload you can put up. They're directly linked to each other. There's a reason that you can put more payload up with a bigger rocket, because ultimately, at the end of the day, rockets are just giant fuel tanks, right? So
Essentially.
yeah. I'm not dunking on New Glenn. Oh, Zach, finish your thing and then I'll go.
I think if we get to Miko and stage set, that'll be a huge win for it. I think that's kind of a happy medium between the first Starship flight and SLS. I think they'll learn a lot from that, clearing the pad. They'll get to see what their pad looks like after launching this vehicle, because it's a brand new pad. And I think I'm almost more interested in how the timeline runs now after this flight. They clear the pad. Okay, how's the state of the pad? We have to question that a lot more now. But also, how soon do we see another one out here? They're supposed to launch 2 payloads this year. Are we going to see another booster rollout this year, let alone 2 stacked vehicles actually fly? And I think that becomes how today goes. I think Miko stage separation would be a good milestone to meet for the first flight. If they get to the point, I don't see them getting to the point where they approach Jacqueline. Though they're making the sea state an important thing, they have to. It's in the checklist of you can't launch unless you're going to be able to complete the mission. But to get through all the milestones they have to do to get there, there's a lot. And there's a lot of point of failures. The interesting thing is just how small the payload is, too. They haven't put from my understanding, haven't put a mass simulator on it either. It's just this tiny little Space Force toaster type thing, when this thing can hold 18 semi-trailers of cargo.
There's a second Space Force toaster, too, that's secret.
They should have put a Rivian Amazon delivery truck on there for the first...
That would have been awesome.
Right? Just this Amazon delivery truck orbiting Earth.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been great.
I still really want Starship to fly a Cybertruck, but whatever.
Don Pettit could film it from the ISS being like, dang it, I missed my delivery again.
And I think there's one thing I've seen a few people talking about, and we haven't had Blue confirm it, but if you look at the things that are lining up, it does fit. It's a conspiracy theory of the mission time. Why are we launching 1 to 4 a.m.? Well, that's when the lunar transit window is open. Also, the patch has New Glenn pointing at a moon with the people looking at the moon. So there's a question of, in the mission timeline, it says they're going to orientate the second stage with the payloads on it, but there's no deployment and there's no second stage disposal burn. So are there stretch goals that they can do later if everything goes well? Is a possibility, because it fits in that lunar transit window, which, I mean, if they get that far, that'd be a pretty big win of, oh yeah, our first rocket made it to the moon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's Blue Origin's whole reason for being, right? Like they're here to build a cislunar economy. So if they can get to the moon, which I think is great, right? Like I was having these conversations on X with Christopher Stanley about should we go to the moon first or Mars first, and I'm like both. We should go to both, and like yeah, if they can, but it doesn't have to be one company or the other. I feel like it's humanity's all in this together. So if SpaceX can go to Mars while Blue is going to the moon, I think that's a net win for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're going into a really crazy orbit as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can see. I mean, that's to me, that's like it's not quite as close, but pretty dang close to geosynchronous transfer orbit that you can see from that flight profile graphic. So it's pretty ambitious, I think, but we will definitely see. Without having a giant mass simulator, they should have enough propellants on the second stage to be able to pull off something like that if everything else goes according to plan up to that point. So we will see. But yeah, aside from that, let's get to Jamie. What do you think? What percentages what level of success do you think that they're going to have for all of these different states?
Let's be clear. There are a couple different things we're looking at here. Are they going to launch tonight? Highly unlikely. It's a brand new rocket, right? Look, that's just the cold, harsh reality of it. I don't care if you've built the paper rocket. Going on your first attempt is very rare. It is not impossible. It is not impossible, but I give them a 20% chance of going on the first try. Well, it can happen. It can happen. But like they also sat there,
which means it's going to happen tonight.
So, yeah. Like they've been struggling with their GSE, which I mean, that's not a surprise. That stuff is hard, right? And we don't know the internal struggles. We don't know what's been going on behind the scenes. We don't know how close they've gotten to like horribleness, or maybe they haven't gotten close. They've been taking it very, very safe. I have no idea. All I'm saying is that the first launch is the hardest. You learn the most on the first launch, and you're generally a little less like YOLO, let's go, and you're a little bit more like maybe we should back off and figure out what the data is telling us. So I think that going tonight is unlikely. I would love to see him go tonight. I just don't think it's happening. The question is which is going to go, in my mind, which is going to go first? Bong or Starship Flight 7? I'm not convinced Bong will go before Flight 7. I'm just not. I think they're going to get into prop load, certainly, and I think that they're going to struggle at that point, and I think they're probably going to wave off. If they don't wave off, once they're in the air, I actually have fairly high confidence in the system architecture, right? They've got a lot of data with regards to the power plants on the vehicles on both stages. So like they know the engines are good. They've done the hydrolox system, or I'm sorry, they're hydrolox. Methalox
hydrolox.
The stage.
There you go.
Yeah, but like second stage, I'm not huge concerns there. First, I mean, few, like, you never know. But like, I give him like an 80-90% chance of, making it to orbit. That part I think is actually the easier part from where they've been. Certainly not easy. It is literally rocket science, but they gotta get that rocket to actually commit to flight. And I think that's where they're going to struggle, is getting the rocket to commit to flight. And all y'all have been disagreeing with me. The community, at least, have been disagreeing. Oh, no, they're going to launch in 2024. They're going to what? Blah, blah, blah. They're going to go on the 6th. And I'm like, no. They have to get into the cadence. They have to get into the countdown so that they can learn what they need to learn. They're going to scrub. And then the next attempt, I think, is every time they try again, the chances of them go higher and higher and higher. So I think, we're very low percentage of them actually going tonight. And then next time it jumps up quite a bit. I think we go up to like 40-50%. And then after that, I think it goes up quite a bit more, like 70-80%. And then beyond that, like, then it's diminishing returns. Like, okay, what are you learning now? Come on, guys. So that's my theory. I would love to be wrong, right? Like, I would love for them to just go and have a perfectly successful mission and off you go. I give them a 0.01% chance of successful landing. That, like, I realize that New Shepard does this, but they have not dealt with a vehicle. It's so different. It is so different. And the speed that they need to burn off is very different. like what they need to deal with is so different. So and they're out at sea, which they have not done before. So successful landing is close to 0%. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to see. I want to see success. I just, been doing this for a while, and like, I love the optimism, guys. But like, come on, I don't know. I want to drink what you guys are drinking, because history is not in your favor here.
Definitely not. I mean, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for quite a while. I took them at their word when they said it was going to launch in 2017. Bastards.
That's the really nice thing, though, is like, yeah, I don't think they're going tonight, but like, I don't think they're delaying beyond the month, right? Like, I think January is the month that they go. The question is, do they go now it's going to be Starship versus Bong. Which one goes first? And I'm not 100% convinced Starship goes first. Like, it's going to be a bit of a race. It's going to depend on the issues that they find in this countdown. And they have done a successful wet dress they did a successful full static fire. Not even a wet dress. They made fire. And that eliminates a lot of risk. So,
Is it just me? Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
They did move it off the pad after they did that. And that's where I find it interesting is they haven't done another even small test to make sure everything's lined up before going into a full countdown.
The thing is, we don't know, because they definitely had issues in their static fire, right? Like, they tried and tried. They seemingly, again, we didn't have internal comms, so we don't know. But it felt like, just looking at the rocket, they tried and tried and tried and tried and tried again. It was like they would go and stop and go and stop and go and stop, which expected, right? This is a test vehicle, right? That's exactly what you expect for a test vehicle. So, and that's why I don't think a launch tonight is likely. I hate to be Debbie Downer, but like, this is a test vehicle. They're going to go. They don't want to just destroy their test vehicle for no reason. They're going to learn what they need to learn. They're going to pause if they need to pause, and then they're going to try again when they've got access to good data where they understand the situations that they're in. There is still going to be, because it's a test article. What'd you see? Is there a comment that went by?
Oh my God, Jacob Bouchard. They need the bong for the orbital reefer.
For the record, these jokes will not get old.
No, not at all.
Anyhow, that's my thought process. I'm excited to be wrong. Ryan, are we doing a bet on this one? You think they're going tonight?
I want them to go tonight. Two very different things.
Oh, I want them to go tonight too. Come on.
I don't want to be the one that jinxes it, right? I want them to go tonight, because if not, it will be a 48-hour turnaround probably to get their fuels replenished, and then they'll be going at the same time as Starship, and then it'll be chaos, and then I won't get any sleep for like 3 days, and then it'll be horrible. I just want some. I just want a gap.
What an amazing day that would be.
It would be horrible. It'd be great if you don't have to do anything, but unfortunately I have to do things. It'd be horrible.
Welcome to being a rocket nerd.
And Starship launching at 10 p.m. They've got to stay up all night, and I've got to do like 15, 18 hours of live streams. No.
Come on, it's living the life. It's great. It's great.
I have absolutely no sympathy whatsoever. I have whatever the opposite of sympathy is. I just want to say DM1 and throw that out there. Oh, I lost my... Stupid. All right, lost my audio again. Give me a second.
Oh, man. That's hilarious. After their static fire test, something that I was waiting for is there was all these predictions on, they'll launch this day, it'll launch this day. And Blue Origin never quite announced what the official launch date was going to be. And that keeps getting pushed a little bit. But here's my question. Where's the official announcement for their webcast? They have stuff in their plan that they are going to do a launch webcast, but is that going to be on X? Is it going to be on YouTube? Is it going to be on Amazon Prime? Who knows?
I think it'll be on X, and it'll be on YouTube and on their website.
Yeah, that's where they do all their new Shepherd. That's where they do all their new Shepherd live streams. So it makes sense if that's replicated for Glenn.
If they pulled an Elon and only put it on Amazon Prime, the space community would flip a collective table.
Absolutely.
Man, I'm
Absolutely.
It was just like 15 years ago when we were all told, we were going to have everything on one like super platform for everything, and then every company realized that they could just break it up and make their own platform. That'd be so annoying if aerospace did the exact same thing for streaming. I would just be like, you know what? I'm quitting this. I'm not covering this anymore. You all have become so
That's why
fragmented and made it
Vulcan
difficult.
launch exclusively on Facebook.
No, that's why you
Yeah.
have the Launchpad. That's why you have the Launchpad network.
Oh,
they
yeah,
they
that's
stream
true.
it all. They'll put it all on YouTube. That's what he's here for.
Excellent. Zach, thank you so much. Your piracy is appreciated. Let me tell you. No,
There's-
Hey, real quick, another great joke. Cameron McSpadden on Mission 2, Jacqueline will take another hit from Bong.
My favorite was from Jewel1234. See it ad free on Boeing Plus. Pretty good.
You wouldn't see it
Pretty
on
good.
Boeing because you wouldn't know where it is.
Yeah, you gotta have a top secret clearance to get access to that channel. What are you talking about?
We are spicy today.
No, it's hey, Boeing Plus is only $69.99 a year. But for an additional $109.99, it will work.
Is that gold, Bitcoin, or dollars?
Yes.
Okay.
I like on YouTube, they've now rolled out a thing in the live chat, and I don't know if it's fully rolled out, but they're betaing it, that you can set a goal for super chats now, and then you can say there's a prize at the end. I'm very tempted to say 50 super chats of $10 gets a Blue Origin launch, and just see what happens. They can put that on their live stream.
Oh my God. Live from the X-37B.
I just keep going into the Boeing Plus where you would have to buy the base subscription. That doesn't get you anything, and then you have to cost plus every single launch that you want to watch is an additional fee that you have to pay for.
This is a very good idea.
Even
Katie.
after you've watched the launch, it still does recurring billing for that launch every time.
And for every scrub, you have to pay that fee again
You have to, exactly.
to truly be cost plus.
Yep, exactly. Man, now
Coming soon to TLP Prime.
oh my God, this is a fun, like, if you had a reward on like a YouTube channel or something like that, just the cost plus membership reward level. Maybe we should change the Tomorrow Plaid
Pro, whatever,
blah,
yeah.
blah blah to the cost plus membership. I think that's hilarious.
The cost plus
And
contract.
then you could tell us what to do, sort of.
Kind of.
So
I'm curious to see in the live broadcast if Starlink's worked out a deal that they have to put live via Starlink in the top right corner for their landing for when it comes down to Jacqueline.
Because they have all the Starlink systems on Jacqueline. Maybe that's what's been holding Blue Origin up this whole time. They haven't had Starlink to be able to do a live stream with.
The next SpaceX intro shows a new Glenn just smashing into.
Hey, it's
Zach,
brought to you by Starlink.
Zach, that's just foul in the best
Oh,
way
man.
possible. Oh my goodness, I love it.
Oh man.
Evil.
I swear we're not haters, everybody. We do want them to succeed.
No, but it's funny. It's still funny. Come on.
It is. It is. I'm really curious about the dummy Starlinks. Like, are those just a slab of concrete, or are those actual, like, the old V2 Starlinks? Oh, Jamie can't talk about it. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Let me get rid of you for a moment. But I don't want to. There we go.
She didn't pay the cost plus for this part of the program.
Didn't play the. No, it's that we don't have the clearance, so it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, they had you know how there's the V2 minis, and then there's the V2, but I don't think they're ever going to launch the V2s unless that's what these dummy Starlinks are, is the original V2s that are, you know, much bigger and meant to be launched on Starship. It's like, why not just go ahead and throw a couple of those out if they're just sitting around the factory floor instead of just some slab of steel or something like that? I think that would be a better test. What do you think, Ryan?
These simulators that they've been loading is essentially just some beams, which is just some mass in the shape of the V3 satellite. These have nothing to do with the original V2 Starlink satellites. SpaceX is not a company that will launch incredibly outdated hardware for the sake of launching it. You know, V2 Starlink and V3 Starlink have nothing to do with each other. There's a reason one is V2 and one is V3, right? So they're going to be launching something which resembles the shape of a V3 Starlink satellite, but it doesn't have any, as far as we can tell, it doesn't actually have any gubbins to it. It's simply just some rods within a casing that is like a Starlink satellite shaped casing, and it has some mass, and it's simply just to be able to see if their internal deployment mechanism can spit something out that happens to be the shape and size of a Starlink V3 satellite.
Which is definitely an important test. They need to make sure that the Pez descent actually works, but it just feels like a missed opportunity. Like, it'd be so awesome if at least one of those did have a little bit of functionality and at least a camera on it to get that shot of, flying away from Starship as it's launched out the Pez dispenser. But we'll see. But yeah, I certainly hope that everything goes well with that and that they're able to move forward and, are able to start relaunching Block 2 or version 2, whatever we're calling it now, of Starship, and are able to start launching those V3 Starlinks and boost the bandwidth every single time. I mean, it's incredible what they've done, and I feel really bad for all of their competitors, Amazon, OneWeb, Eutelsat. It's like, you guys are so far behind now. I don't know if they're going to be able to. We're really going to have to push hard to be able to compete with Starlink at this point.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, and I should probably have OneWeb in my court because I think the UK government bailed them out of bankruptcy, but
yes, they did.
The Starlink is able to do. It has been able to become what it has become because
yes, Photon Empress, we want a space buoy now. That's exactly what we're asking for. Space buoy.
Starlink has been able to become what it has become because it's direct to the consumer, right? You yourself can buy a Starlink dish and subscribe to the network. OneWeb isn't that. OneWeb provides their services to the traditional internet service provider companies. They do not provide their services direct to the consumer, which is why OneWeb has not been able to compete with Starlink because, technically their business models are entirely separate. OneWeb is a company which is providing satellite internet services to corporations to then distribute to other consumers. Starlink is a satellite network which is distributing internet services directly to their customers, directly to the consumer, which is it's two completely different ways of looking at it. And it's also why Starlink has become the de facto satellite internet service that it has.
I would agree with that. There's a little bit of overlap with like the providing for companies and even government agencies around the world, not just the United States or UK, but around the world. So, But yeah, I don't know. And Airville had a good question. Do we think that we're going to see any Kuiper launches this year? I think we'll see probably at least one or two, at least launching on, there's at least one that's going to be launching this year on an Atlas V. Yet to be seen if there's going to be any launching on Vulcan. And I'm going to be honest, it's probably going to be a while before we see any Kuipers get launched on New Glenn. But I could be wrong.
I want to see one, but we haven't seen anything. We had the proto flight a couple years ago on an Atlas V of a couple satellites. That's it. We haven't seen anything since, right? So they have deadlines with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, that they have to launch a certain number of satellites by a certain date in order to keep their frequencies reserved or something along those lines. So I'm starting to get a little bit worried they're not going to be able to meet those FCC deadlines. And if they want to meet them, they're going to have to get launching this year. But maybe they're secretly launching Kuiper to the moon on New Glenn. What? I don't know. Conspiracy theories all around. But they need to get going soon, and we haven't seen anything. Hopefully, it's all behind closed doors. But it's super hard to say when these things are going to happen because we just haven't seen anything.
I think they're more ready in the back end than we think. I think it's waiting for the launch providers and the vehicles to get them up. And the reason I think that is they were at CES this year. Yeah. They had a whole booth of all their different dishes. Like, they're trying now to reach out to the public and say, look, we're an option. Are they going to be able to compete with Starlink being in basically every major retailer now in the United States? Good luck. But They have Amazon. I mean, you throw that on the front page of Amazon, you're going to reach a lot more people than Starlink's going to reach in a Best Buy.
And you can sell through Amazon as well.
That too. So I
Get
think
the
they
mini
have
version
some ways. They have some ways, and the Mini looks smaller than the Starlink Mini.
Yeah. Let me see because I saw that picture. Let me see if I can pull that up.
It's like
In
an
my
iPad
opinion, the
Mini
only
versus
way
an iPad Pro.
that they could possibly compete
There
with
we go.
Starlink at this point is to undercut them on price, right? So, what Zach said, I honestly think having Amazon in your corner is going to be a big deal for Kuiper, but they need to undercut Starlink on price, because if not, there's no way they can compete, because it will be years before they even have a constellation the size of Starlink, let alone the bandwidth capabilities that the Starlink constellation currently has.
See, Mystic Wolf has an interesting idea. Do you get a discount with Amazon Prime? Do they just roll it into Amazon Prime or Amazon Prime Pro? That it's a feature you get.
Get the mini one included with every renewal.
I do not like that the Mini has a stand like the V1 Starlinks.
Yeah.
Because that is not portable. That thing should just be that white base, like the Starlink Minis are.
Yeah.
Or maybe the stand is removable. Maybe, I don't know, because if you're out in the wilderness and you want to set it up on like a table or something, maybe that little tripod is useful. But if that's not detachable, then that's a bit of a pain to try and fit in a backpack.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazon Prime Space Pro Max. No, it's cost plus. You have to pay for each state, each county that you want service in.
Oh my gosh. That just gave me a headache. And then if you're doing different country stuff, you have to pay an additional fee now because the satellite that's providing you is currently over California airspace. So now you have to pay an extra tax for that.
Don't give them any ideas.
Right? Well, I think that we should probably move on from that. Hopefully things will go well. I think that we're all in agreement that we'll probably see Atlas V Kuiper first. Maybe see Ariane 6 launch this year. Maybe not. We'll see. They have some of their own issues that they need to work out. California Franchise Tax Board is listening. Damn it. We just gave them another idea. We got to stop doing that. Oh, man.
Didn't they have a couple missions booked on Falcon 9, or they were considering it?
Yes, they do. We'll see about that. That would be hilarious if that launches first.
Maybe they could upgrade to it. Maybe they could upgrade to a Starship and just deploy their whole constellation with like 2 or 3 Starships.
That would be so awesome. That would be so awesome.
They'd save so much money.
Oh my gosh. And if we can just get Jeff and Elon to like hang out at the launch site together and high five each other once that happens. God, that would be hilarious, but also awesome at the same time, and encourage the type of activities that we want to see with, having everyone cooperate together and do cool things together. So anyway, let's move on. Jamie, you ready to come back on and we can talk a little bit about NASA Mars sample return? I know your comments already pretty well understood. You think the whole thing's just stupid.
It's stupid, yeah. It's kind of I'm like, what are y'all it's the same thing for me talking about New Glenn. I'm like, what are you all thinking? No. Also, as you were bringing me in, I was going to Grok and I was going to ask Grok to build me an image of Jeff Bezos and Elon high-fiving, but I ran out of time. I will build that. We should make that the thumbnail for the show or something. You want me to go first? Yeah, game over. This Amazon SpaceX discovery will shock you. Yeah, I'll go first on this one because I think I'm probably in the minority, or at least I'm pretty sure Jared's going to disagree with. I actually don't know what you guys are going to think, but I think the whole mission's kind of dumb because we are getting very. Oh, I just lost audio again, so I keep talking. But I think I will try to keep talking. I think it's dumb because by the time we get back to a point where that mission is ready, we will be so close to having humans there. And I know we've had this discussion before, blah, blah, blah. We're going to contaminate it, blah, blah. But like, this mission makes no sense. Like, just send the giant, ugly bags of mostly water and be done with it. Focus on sending humans to Mars. Like, this sample return makes no sense. The actual mission itself makes no sense to me. That's the crux of my issue. Jared, go.
Well, getting samples back from Mars has been a priority for a really long time. This is not something that we just decided to, like, we woke up in 2020 and said, hey, we've really got not a lot going on because of the pandemic going on right now. Any of y'all got any ideas about what to do? This is something that's been a priority since the 1980s. Trying to figure out how to do this, trying to build the robotics capability to do it. So,
I will say this may have been on the books since the 80s, but I would disagree that this was a priority since the 80s. If this was a priority since the 80s, this would have been done already. We put humans on the moon. Don't tell me we can't get a sample return from Mars.
We did not have the technology that was needed. So, right?
We didn't have the technology needed to put humans on the moon either, and we figured it out because it was a priority. So I will agree that it may have been like something that was discussed, but I will disagree that it was a priority. If it's a priority, you figure it out.
Yes.
That's right.
So the biggest problem, the biggest technological hurdle that so many of these things had to go over was that actual launch vehicle from the surface of Mars back to orbit around Mars, right? So that was the difficult part. That was the technological hurdle with it, was making that happen. Then it was mostly budgetary systems or pressures that caused that. So we have wanted more sample return for the longest time. So I mean, it was going to be a part of the Apollo application program, more sample return, bringing those samples back here to Earth. It's just that it was technologically difficult, and the budgetary priorities were not there to allow that technology to be developed. So it's always been something we've wanted. It's just there was never really, as Joshua Collins in the chat room is saying, is that we had a blank check for putting people on the moon. We didn't have that for anything else at that time. So,
right.
So that's the big problem.
Because it was an actual national priority. I guess I'm griping over individual words, so I'll let that go. But at the end of the day, like, okay, so we've been trying to do this since the 80s. We took too long. We're so close to being able to send.
So
say it again.
Even before the 80s. So, right? The United States isn't the only group that's thought about doing it too. So, the Soviet Union wanted to do a Mars sample return mission since the early 70s. So
Ben in the chat room says we won't get humans to Mars till 2040s. Better have sampled back a decade before. I fundamentally disagree with that. I mean, Elon's been very clear that he's sending humans to Mars, and he's like, YOLO, let's go, right? Like, so I would expect this decade we will send humans, or at least we will send craft capable of launching off the surface of Mars. Yeah, I mean, Well, there could be things that don't go right, but like those vehicles are being tested right now, right? But like, I mean, they're tested and funded, right? Those are the two big things, right? Those vehicles are tested and have funding behind them, and like.
I would say the launch vehicles. I don't know if we've heard anything about things like long-term life support and ground systems that you're going to need for Mars and other things like that being tested. At least I don't know if anything publicly being said.
Always comes back to ground systems, doesn't it? Yep. Everyone forgets about ground systems. Yep.
People forget about stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah. But the gist of basically what happened with NASA's study recently is that they're kicking the can down the road to 2026. And I feel like a lot of that is happening because they don't want to make a decision now and then have that reversed by the incoming Trump administration. They want to make sure that they have these options available for whoever is going to be leadership at NASA plus Trump administration to try to figure that out. But there are two options. at this point. One of them is to use the sky crane technology that we have in the past that could get us about a ton down to the surface of Mars. The other option is to use a commercially provided heavy lander in order to do something like that. And very interestingly, the day after that came out, Rocket Lab basically said, hey, why don't you like open this up to commercial competition, because we kind of want to have a shot at doing it. And then it came in and basically said, yeah, we could probably do it for about 30% less than what you are expecting to be able to do it for, and we could probably do it about half a decade earlier than you're expecting to do it too. So so we'll have to see. It's not exciting in the fact that the study is basically kicking the can down the road, but at the same time, yeah, that's kind of how it's going to go, because we're about to have a flip in leadership at the moment, and we need to see what's going on.
And the thing that gets me too is that, you know, with either option, something that I personally think is probably, it's great that they have a price tag to each of these options, but I think what might be bringing up these costs is that return rocket. I mean, why on earth do you need to design that thing to pop out like a Polaris missile and then take off? Like, it's an extra $2 billion right there. I'm sure of it. Like, and with either of those options, they're saying that, oh, it has to be a requirement that it uses the ESA technology to for the return rocket, for the return vehicle. And I'm just like, that's probably why they didn't, you know, seriously look at Rocket Lab's proposal, because, oh, you're not including ESA on this. Rejected. Well, not yet. They are leaving that up to the next administration. But, you know, I feel like, and nothing against ESA, but I just feel like there's some old cost plus contracting BS going on there, that we have to use this freaking Polaris pop out missile design before it launches. That's ridiculous. Come on.
I think Davis 404 has a maybe even smarter idea. Big thing they keep mentioning is we need to make sure we keep these samples pristine. They can't be contaminated in any way by the vehicle that's, you know, moving them up to orbit and then sending them back and then bringing them here. Just send a laboratory on a Starship with people and analyze them there. It might be a couple years later than you get it here, but walk outside and get more.
I don't think it'll be later. I don't think it'll be sooner. I think it'll be faster if you just use the ugly giant bags of mostly water. Is that the actual quote? Anyone remember? Am I close? Ugly giant bags.
Mostly water.
Or even just get it into Earth orbit. Don't bring it back into Earth. Send it to a station. Like, there's so many other options that make it easier, quote unquote.
Bringing the samples back to cislunar is an option that NASA talked about, but you know they specifically said they don't want to do that. They want to bring the samples straight back to Earth, OSIRIS-REx style, because they don't want to then have to fund another mission to go up and get these samples. And I disagree on sending a laboratory to Mars or doing this science on a space station. They need to bring these things back to Earth, because no matter how large your space station is, or no matter how large your laboratory on Mars is, there is no way they will be able to compete with the scientific instruments that we have on the ground on Earth. And also, like NASA did with the lunar samples from the Apollo programs, they have some samples which are unopened because they are waiting for better technology to come down the road in decades' time, which will continue to happen. There is no point spoiling all of your samples straight away in a laboratory on a Starship on Mars, or in a lab or in a space station in Earth orbit, when you can bring when you can bring them back down to Earth and keep them in a secure environment and analyze them in much better scientific detail in the future than you can in the present day.
Then hand deliver it, right? Like we don't build the rocket. Just like when the return flight sending the astronauts back from Mars to Earth goes, just give them a little. Like, I've done this. Like, we've needed to get things from, you know, California to Florida. I'll just jump on a plane carrying a rocket part with me. Just do the same thing. Just carry some Mars sample on your return mission to Earth. You don't have to build all this complicated stuff. We're sending the humans. It's funded. It's ready to go. Go to the programs that have the funding, right? So this program has funding. So just give it to the human, send it back to Earth, and build a laboratory on Mars, because why do I need... So, to your point, okay, cool, maybe we don't have the technology yet necessary to do whatever we want to do. So, send it to Earth, put it in storage, whatever, wait until you have the technology. For the rest of it, build a laboratory on Mars, do the real-time whatever you need to do, and then send the data back to Earth, which will make... The data will make it there in, 8 minutes, up to 22 minutes, right? Way faster. So, by the way, for the record, it's ugly bags of mostly water. There's no word giant. Ugly bags of mostly water is the actual quote. I'm just saying, we are on the cusp of sending humanity to Mars. I think sending humanity to Mars is far more likely than doing an actual uncrewed sample return mission. So, just use that, right? I'm not opposed to doing research on Mars, and I think the research and the science is a good idea. I just think that we're putting our heads in the sand and pretending like this human mission stuff doesn't exist or isn't funded. It exists. It's funded. We're building the rockets. Let's just use that.
For a couple more weeks, I really do think there's going to be a shift, and not a shift only to SpaceX. I know a lot of people are worried about that because Isaacman obviously has done so much with SpaceX. He's already come out and said that if you come with a good proposal that's going to make sense and work, he wants everyone to succeed. And I think there's going to be this big shift from, in a bad way of saying it, old NASA to this new commercial. Let's actually go and do things rather than sit and stay and take 20 years to do something. I think we're going to see stuff ramp up more, or at least I hope we do.
I don't think everything needs to be commercial. I do agree. I do think there needs to be a mentality shift in NASA towards realistic missions that we can actually accomplish on a real budget, that are going to fit inside of the... they have to understand that they work at the whims of political tides, right? For better or worse, they just do. And pretending like they do is foolish. So I get it. They want to have these 20, 30-year missions, but they need to think in 4-year chunks. Mm-hmm. They really do. And they got to figure out how to sell these things in 4-year chunks. And they've lost a lot of that ability. And so I think they really need to get that ability back.
Well, Nelson was the last couple of years was pushing big for a 5-year budget to get them, a year through. I'm wondering with the new administration if that's something that Isaacman will approach with the lunar landing, hopefully in the next 4 years, the Martian landing with Starship, hopefully in the next 4 to 5 years. There's some big milestones. Would Congress put through a 5-year NASA budget if it was a smart budget and that, it had very specific targets to meet?
Whoa. 5-year budgets. That's starting to sound a little Chinese. What are you, communist? I'm just kidding. You have a great point.
They're going to bring Mars sample return back before we're going to, and they just started 20 years after us.
Yeah, that's the risk, isn't it?
I mean, but also, what the heck? How did we let that happen? I am not anti this mission. So, Jared, I hear you. It's very difficult to do. We should have done it 20 years ago. I believe we had the technology 20 years ago. I think we didn't have the will to do it 20 years ago. But I think we could have figured out how to make it happen 20 years ago. It might have been messy. It might have failed. Who knows? It is very complicated. Let's not pretend like it's not probably the one of most complicated things humanity's ever done, right? But it's not impossible. Yeah. And we should have done it 20 years ago. We should have done it in the early aughts.
Yeah, 100%.
I have just one more point with the ESA return vehicle, and I just want to make it very clear, the ESA return vehicle goes from Mars orbit to Earth delivery. The Mars ascent vehicle, which is from the Martian surface to Martian orbit, is a completely different thing. So the ESA return vehicle, right? I think right now, going for a commercial option and screwing over ESA will not go down well diplomatically, because even though NASA is going to be shifting to a leader who has very clearly proven the benefits of commercial space, ESA is about a decade behind NASA in this transition, right? So as a European, I think screwing over ESA might be a bit of a diplomatic nightmare. However, if I was running ESA, if you were to say, sorry, we don't want your Earth return vehicle anymore, but hey, we'll give you a couple flights on Dragon for free. We'll send a couple British astronauts to the space station for free. That's all right, NASA. You can screw us over. That'd be fine.
I'm sure we can figure out some consolation prize.
I think they're more than a decade behind, if I'm being brutally honest.
I mean,
Right,
Ariane
I don't think
6 is kind of a example of how behind ESA is, and I do,
Yep.
I don't want to burn bridges, but I have to agree with you. They're behind.
Yep. 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 I mean,
Say the least.
yeah, and I'm not trying to be mean or pessimistic or any of that fun jazz. I'm just trying to be a little bit realistic of like, this is the cold, harsh reality of the world we live in. You don't have to like it, but it doesn't make it untrue, right? Like NASA needs to work in the world of politics, and ESA needs to get out of the 90s.
Yeah. Speaking of cold, harsh realities,
We're at the end of the show. Is that what?
I really like this
Is that
comment
where
from
we're
Massimo. Just the fact that JPL magically put out a cheaper and more reasonable plan after being effectively threatened with going commercial is very telling on what the priorities are. And I kind of hate to say it, but he's right.
Yep.
It's
They
like
wanted.
it's like a meme. Jeez.
It's the problem when there's no competition internally, right? Like the like, who else is going to come up with this? Blah 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 blah. We can put all of the bobs and features and do all of the science all at once, which costs you 100 trillion billion zillion dollars, and no one takes a critical eye to it, being like, do we actually need all of that? Come on, like, what can we actually do here? And that's one of the advantages and disadvantages of commercial, right? So they can come in and be a lot more like, hey, what's going to be financially viable? I think there are lessons on both sides. I think commercial can learn from NASA, and NASA can learn from commercial in that regard. Because sometimes commercial goes a little too far.
I was going to say, there's been JPL's kind of been the hub of NASA's Mars program for a very long time, and because of that, there is some complacency that can come into play, like we've been seeing with the budgets that have been coming out on a multitude of things. I wouldn't say that JPL lacks agility. I see someone in the chat room saying that if you need an example of that, take a look at Ingenuity in that program and just how rapidly that was developed, and basically how the scientists were originally not on board, and then they said, actually, you know what, we're wrong here. Let's flip that around and let's get this little helicopter up and going and see what we can do with it. And then not only just using that as a test program, but then flipping that test program to becoming an actual part of your operation of a multi-billion-dollar mission. I got to be honest, that's a pretty agile organization to be able to do something like that. But at the same time, that there's something to be said about that complacency with JPL that happened with the Mars program, and I could say that with my friends that work at JPL, that this began to be understood 2 years ago, and then this began to be corrected about a year ago. So the you can do no wrong attitude from HQ has changed significantly to the you need to get it together attitude. And I can assure you, internally, things are moving at a good clip in order to steer the ship a bit better than was going on earlier. So it's exciting to see what's going to happen, and go into the future of what's going to happen with that. And for more sample return, we're going to have to see what happens on that front. I've got a lot of opinions about everything that you guys said today, and that probably is maybe better for the members show. So maybe we can talk about it. We're up against the clock right now. So, but there's some very, very big question marks that I would have to ask you all about things with it.
Oh, I'm sure you'll hold my feet to the fire, as you should. And I will say, I do want to say, like, as harsh as I've been on him on this specific mission, JPL is my favorite NASA center. And I won't say they can do no wrong, but like, of all the NASA centers, I think they have the right mentality, and the fact that they're willing to go, oh wait, maybe we're wrong here, and switch so quickly for a government organization. Like most people can't move that quickly. Like, kudos to them. But like, doesn't mean that they were in the right on this one. I don't think they were. Yeah.
JPL has absolutely made mistakes. But like you said, JPL is really one of the few organizations, government organizations, that I know that will say, yeah, we were wrong, and we're going to change this whole thing ASAP. Everybody get back to work. So
I would agree with that. Well, if you guys would like to get into a bit more of the nitty gritty and talk about a couple other harsh realities, please join us for our member show. And I would like to have a huge thank you to everyone who is already supporting us through our membership program. Without your guys' support and help, we would not be able to do this. So it is very greatly appreciated. And we've had a lot of really good conversations in the member show. And sometimes it's not always space related. So it can get interesting sometimes. But I very much appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope that we will be able to continue and have a lot more interesting discussions in the future. And we will see very soon whether or not any of the predictions that we've talked about this week are going to come to pass or not. So with that, again, big thank you to everyone who was able to join us today, and we will see you again next time. Bye.